in terms of the economic recovery and where we are going in terms of the next 12 months. The second part of the presentation is about consumer trends. Because of the pandemic, consumers have changed their habit, they've changed their way of doing things. So I'm going to report on that. And the last part of the presentation is related to our study on entrepreneurs. We're going to look at how entrepreneurs have changed their priorities for the next 12 months. So let's start with the economy. The world economy is in recession. There's going to be a contraction this year of 4.4%. And we expect a rebound in 2021. The world economy should go back to the pre-crisis level at the end of 2021. But as you can imagine, COVID-19 had a huge impact on all economies around the world. The graphics give you an idea of how difficult the situation is for many countries. China is going to have a positive growth, much lower than growth that we have seen in the past, but nevertheless is going to be positive. And the main reason is they have a strong manufacturing sector that is already back to the pre-crisis level. So that's the reason why China is going to have a positive growth. But every other major countries are going to have difficulties. The United States, Germany, Japan, Canada, all these developed economies are going to have a contraction of between 4 and 5%. Some countries are going to have even more difficulties. France, United Kingdom, Italy, they're going to have a negative growth of around 10%. So as you can see, COVID-19 is having a huge impact on many countries around the world. So one of the impact of the COVID-19 is on commodities. And I'll give you one example, which is oil price. You know, the oil sector is an important sector in Canada. The blue line represents the WTI, the world price. As you can see, the world price started to decline right at the beginning of the pandemic, way before the virus was even in Canada. So the reason for that is when China was hit by the virus, the lockdown that they introduced reduced the demand for oil. So as many countries around the world went into a lockdown, you can see that the price started to decline and declined very rapidly. Actually, the price was even negative for a few days. As the world economy reopened, the oil price came back and it's at $40 now. But this is still $20 below the price in February. So this is a very difficult situation for our oil sector. The reason for that is the oil demand is still 10% below what it was before the pandemic. So this is going to reduce, this is slowing down the sector in Canada, also slowing down investment. So many provinces are going to be negatively affected and the country is going to, the recovery is going to be slowed down by this low oil price. So what the situation of the recovery in Canada? Well, this is how we see the situation. We see the situation in 3 phases. First one was the lockdown, and the lockdown is behind us, thankfully. The second phase is the initial recovery. When the economy reopened, businesses are reopening, and the businesses are rehiring people. So this is the initial recovery. Typically, the initial recovery is fast, but it's stronger than the rest of the recovery. Finally, the last phase of the recovery is what we call the late recovery. And this is where you go back to the pre-crisis level. So the next few slides, I'm going to talk about phase 2 and phase 3. So this is where we are now. We are at 94% the level of economic activities we were in February. So these are real numbers. As you can see, during the lockdown, the GDP dropped significantly in Canada, but as the economy reopened, the level of economic activities is increasing. We're not back to normal, we're not back to 100%, but we are at 94% the level of activities we were in February. In terms of employment, the Canadian economy lost 3 million jobs during the lockdown, but as the economy reopened, the number of jobs has been increasing again. So we are not back to the 12.2 million job we had, but we are back to some level. We have actually recuperated 76% of the job lost so far. When we look by sector, you can see Some sectors are performing better than others. Finance, insurance, and real estate are back to 100%. Manufacturing in Canada is back to 99%, which is really good. Retail trade is back to 96%. So in total, we are back to 96% of the level of job we had in February. However, some sectors are not performing as well. Accommodation and food services, for example, are not performing very well because of the restriction that the COVID-19 is imposing on them. So as you know, our border is closed. We don't have as many tourism. People are not traveling as much. So this is really having an impact on accommodation and food services. But in general, our initial recovery has been stronger than in the United States. Today, we are at 96% the level of employment we were in February, compared to only 93% in the United States. So the initial recovery in Canada has been strong, stronger than expected at the beginning, and as you can see, stronger than what we are seeing in the US. So what about Ontario now? Well, the number of jobs is the same. We can see that, for example, during the lockdown, the unemployment rate increased significantly. But after that, it dropped, and it's improving now as many jobs are being created. When we look by sector, the manufacturing sector is at 102% now. So it's actually higher than the level in February. And I'm going to explain a bit more why, but this is actually very good. It's the highest level in Canada. Finance, insurance, and real estate are 101%, which is higher than February. So in total, for the Ontario economy, we are at 96% the level of job that we were in February. Again, just like for Canada, accommodation and food services are having more difficulties because of the restriction of COVID-19. So the reason why the manufacturing sector is performing so well in Ontario is because of the automotive sector. Actually, as you can see, this is a really interesting situation where during the lockdown, this industry was closed for 2 months. So the level of economic activities really dropped for 2 months. After that, it did increase since the economy is reopened. So actually the level today is a bit higher than in February. So some sectors are actually coming back very quickly. In terms of retail sales, similar situation. Retail is actually higher today in Ontario than it was in February. And so the initial recovery in Canada has been strong. Like I said, stronger than expected and even stronger than other developed economies. So the question is, how is going to be the rest of the recovery? Because we're not done yet. We're not back to the pre-crisis level in every sector. So we believe that after this strong initial rebound, the last part of the recovery is going to be a little bit slower. It's going to take a little bit more time. And there's 4 reasons for that. First, the pandemic is not over yet. Second, consumers remain cautious, both because of health issues and also because of their financial. Third, business investment are going to be lower this year. And some key sectors of our economy is going to take more time to recover. So first, as you know, we are in the middle of the second wave. So the pandemic is not over yet. The graph that you see is the number of new cases per million in Canada. We did very well during the summer. The level of cases was low. But since September, since people are back to work or to their workplace and kids are back to school, the number of new cases in Canada has been increasing. That's the case, especially in Ontario and Quebec. So this is very important. This will have a big impact on the last part of the recovery. If we can control this current situation, the second wave, without putting the economy under another lockdown, well, the recovery is going to be faster. If governments are forced to have a second lockdown, well, this is going to delay the recovery. So that's the first reason why we believe the last part of the recovery is going to take a little bit more time. Second reason is consumers remain cautious. Despite the fact that the economy is reopened, the number of jobs has been increasing, consumers remain cautious. And that's another reason why we believe the last part of the recovery is going to be a bit slower. The third reason is on the business side. Business investment are down this year. They're going to be lower than last year. We keep track of investment intentions every quarter. So in January, we were pretty optimistic about the year. We thought actually that business investment would be higher this year than last year. But of course, everything changed in April. And our research is showing that business investment are going to be lower this year than last year. It's going to take some time for businesses to have the capacity, but also the confidence to reinvest in their business. Finally, some sectors of the economy are going to have a slower recovery, which is going to slow down the recovery for Canada and for Ontario. The graph that you see is our forecast by sector. So if you look at the top of the graph on the right side, you can see the sectors that are performing the best, the one who have the strongest recovery. So pharma, ICT, which is technology, retail, and food manufacturing, they are already back to the pre-crisis level. But on the other side of the graph, if you look at the yellow zone, you can see some sectors that are actually going to take a little bit more time to recover. Everything related to transportation and tourism, accommodation, restaurants, and air transportation are going to be the last sector to fully recover. But there's also other sectors, oil and gas, aerospace as well. Auto manufacturing is coming back quicker than other sectors right now. But some sectors are going to take a little bit more time. And that's the fourth reason why we believe the last part of the recovery is going to take a bit more time. So this is our forecast. Today, we are at the end of this initial recovery period that, like I said, we have been doing quite well. We're performing better than the United States, for example. But we're not done yet. We're not back to the pre-crisis level. So it's going to take a bit more time to get there. And it's going to depend on the number of cases we have. So we have two scenarios. One is an optimistic scenario. We believe under that scenario that we will control the second wave and governments won't have to put any part of the economy under a lockdown. Under that scenario, we believe the Canadian economy is going to go back to the pre-crisis level in the beginning of 2022. The second scenario is a more pessimistic scenario. Let's say that the second wave got onto, we are not able to control the second wave and we have to put some part of the economy under lockdown. This would delay the recovery. It might delay the recovery until the end of 2023. So today, with the information we have, we still believe, we're still optimistic. We still believe that we can control the second wave without going into a second lockdown. And then we believe that the economy is going to have a full recovery by the beginning of 2022. The second part of the presentation is about consumer trends or consumer habits. The pandemic has changed the way consumers are buying products and services. They're changing consumer behaviors. So we did a study over the summer to better understand that. We have four conclusions. The first one is Canadians remain cautious about spending money. They're cautious because of the level of uncertainty, and it translates into very high level of saving. So the rate of saving in Canada is at the historic high. So Canadians are saving money just to make sure that the next few months are not going to be worse than they were for the last few months. So this is the first conclusion. Consumers, despite the fact that the economy is reopened, they're going to be cautious about spending money. Second conclusion is they are really spending money online. Canadians want to spend more online than before. 32% of Canadians are saying that they're going to spend more online in the next 12 to 18 months than before. The online business is not a new trend, but the pandemic has accelerated this trend. Actually, the online business has doubled since last February, and we believe that this trend is going to continue to be very strong. So this is important to understand for business. As consumers are moving towards the online business, it's important for business who are selling to consumer to be aware of that. The third conclusion is the fact that Canadians want to buy more local products or services. Canadians want to support the local community as the economy has been slowing down. Even 83% of consumers are saying that they are willing to pay more for local products. So they want to buy local products or they want to buy from a local company. You probably have seen over the last few months, many companies, Canadian companies, they market themselves as a Canadian company. So this is a new trend that you see. When the economy slows down, Canadians are much more keen on buying local. Finally, the last trend that we saw is Canadian consumers are much more aware of health. They are cautious about health and the virus, of course. They want to feel in a safe place when they go to a store, to shopping mall, or to any businesses. So it has become a selection criteria. So I know a lot of businesses have spent a lot of money and effort to make sure that their employees and their consumers are safe with this pandemic. And that's exactly what Canadians are looking for. So our business environment is changing. Consumers are looking for something different. First of all, they're being cautious with their spending. Second, they want to buy more online than any time before. They also want to buy local products or from local companies. Finally, they are still very cautious about this virus. So for their health is actually very important for them. So they are going to make sure that when they go to a store, or to a shopping mall, or to a restaurant, that they will feel safe. The last part of the presentation is about entrepreneurs. We did a number of studies in the last few months to better understand how the pandemic had an impact on small and mid-sized firms in Canada. Also, to understand their priorities. So as you can imagine, COVID-19 had a huge impact on businesses in Canada. 76% reported that their sales decreased over the last 6 months. 45%, almost half of businesses have to reduce their staff because of COVID-19. So that's a huge impact. And 76% reported a decrease in profit. Finally, 39% of businesses, they have to take more debt to go through this crisis. So businesses have really felt the impact of COVID-19 over the last few months. So to better understand what are going to be their priorities for the next few months, we have interviewed 1,000 entrepreneurs across the country in every sector of the economy. We wanted to have a better understanding of how COVID-19 have changed businesses' priorities. So what we find is Canadian has been really resilient and they have been innovative about their business plan. So they are adjusting to this crisis. And they have established for themselves 5 priorities. The first one, and by far the most important one, they want to improve their financial situation. 39% of entrepreneurs said their first priority is actually to improve their financial situation. They want to do this by reducing operating costs. Right from the beginning of the lockdown, we saw many companies who have worked to reduce their costs and to become more efficient, improve their productivity. They want to improve their cash flow management. We all know this crisis came very, very quickly. It was very difficult for many businesses to maintain their cash flow during the crisis. Third, they want to reduce their debt. So, like I said, many businesses have taken more debt over the last 6 months. And now one of their priorities is really to reduce their debt. Second priority is they want to invest more in technology. I was actually surprised that so many entrepreneurs are focusing on technology in this difficult period of time. Actually, 40% of entrepreneurs said they're going to invest more in technology in the next 3 years. And the reason for that is they want to improve their efficiency. And one way to do it is to invest in technology, to have better processes, to have better equipment, a better way of doing things. So that's the second priority. The third priority is to focus on teleworking. So this is a new trend as well. The perception in the past by entrepreneurs was not that good about teleworking. But the pandemic has really changed that. Many entrepreneurs were forced to rely on, to ask their employees to work from home. And actually, they saw the benefits of it. They believe now that teleworking is good for innovation. It's increased employee productivity, and it's actually very good for employee motivation. So we believe that teleworking is going to be a new trend that is going to stick around after this pandemic. Of course, we won't, everybody's working from home now. It's not going to continue to work from home after the pandemic. But I don't think we will go back to the pre-crisis level. I think we're going to have a new balance between working in the workplace and working from home. Actually, if you look at the bottom of the slide, you can see that 18% of Canadian entrepreneurs believe that their workspace needs will decrease in the future. So the work organization is going to be different in the future. The fourth priority is increasing online sales. So when we look at on the consumer side, our research was showing that more Canadians want to buy online. When we look on the business side, more entrepreneurs want to invest in technology to increase their presence online. So this is actually very consistent. They want to improve their company website. They also want to be more active on social media. They want to launch targeted promotional campaign. So businesses in Canada really understand the benefit of selling online, and especially during the pandemic, companies who have been more present online, they have actually were able to maintain part of their revenue. So there's a real momentum right now in investing in technology, especially in investing in technology to increase business presence online. Finally, the last strategy for businesses, it's something different. It's something that we were a bit surprised about. 25% of entrepreneurs believe they want to expand their market. They want to grow their company during this slowdown. They believe that this is the best way to survive. If you explore new markets, if you launch new products, it's a good way to diversify your company. And they believe that it's a great way to do it during the pandemic. Some entrepreneurs they even want to buy other companies during this slowdown to increase or to expand their business. So 5 priorities for businesses after this difficult period of time. First, they want to improve their financial situation. Second, they want to take advantage of technology to reduce their costs, to increase the efficiency of their business. Third, they want to focus on teleworking. Fourth, they want to respond to consumers who want to buy online. They want to invest to have a higher, bigger presence online, to benefit from this momentum that is the online business. Finally, 25% of entrepreneurs want to focus on growth. They believe this is the right time to grow, to expand their business. So in conclusion, the Canadian economy recovery is well on the way, but we're not done yet. The initial recovery was strong, stronger than what we expected in March, and actually stronger than other developed economies like the United States. But we're not done yet. This is not over. So we still have some work to do to go back to the pre-crisis level. The way we are able to control the virus will be crucial in terms of the length of the last phase of the recovery. If we are able to control the virus, the recovery is going to be faster. So I'm going to stop here. I welcome your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tara Chaquin. I'm the Member Relations Director with the Chamber. Thank you very much, Pierre, for your presentation today, and for you and everyone in the BDC team who are doing so much to support small businesses in Thunder Bay and across Canada. And as you had indicated, we have time now for a few questions. You can use the raise your hand feature or indicate in the chat feature that you have a question so that I can acknowledge you and unmute you so that you can go ahead and ask the question and Pierre can answer it. And if you just give me a few moments, I will look for who has a raised hand. Pierre, while we're waiting for some questions to come in, perhaps you can answer some of the questions that you often get. I'm sure that you have done quite a few of these sessions. And what are some of the standard questions that you do receive?
Well, one of the common questions right now is about the US election. People are
Yes.
wondering what will be the difference between Mr. Trump or Mr. Biden. Mr. Trump, of course, if he's reelected, is going to be quite the same than over the last 4 years because he doesn't really have a program. He doesn't really have a plan. So we imagine that he will do the same that he did over the last 4 years. But Mr. Biden has a specific plan, and some of his plan is going to be good for Canada. For example, he wants to increase business tax in the United States. So if that's the case, that will put our companies more competitive compared to US company. We remember a few years ago, Mr. Trump reduced taxes and our businesses were disadvantaged because of that. So if Mr. Biden go back to the level of tax that Americans used to pay, well, this is going to be good for Canada. Also, another positive point about Mr. Biden, we can imagine that he will be not imposing tariff as much as what Mr. Trump did, which was quite unusual to impose tariff on your best trade partner or even your best friend. So we probably will have a more stable international trade policy from Mr. Biden.
And I have a question, as I don't see any questions that have come in yet. In terms of governmental stimulus packages designed for businesses, were any of the calculations that you have put forward, were any of those dependent on those, or were those independent of what they might present or enforce or provide?
No, they were including those. The most popular program for business is the wage subsidy program, which has been the one that has been used a lot by businesses. And this is part of our forecast because it's an important program to help companies to rehire people. So one of the reasons why we are, at 96% the level of job we were in February is probably of this program. So we have it in our forecast.
Okay, and I am going to go to Laura, who has her hand up to ask a question. Laura, you may be able to unmute yourself. If not, I will unmute you in just a moment.
I'm good.
Oh, good.
Okay. Bonjour, Pierre.
Bonjour, hi.
Nice to see you. I'm really interested in the tourism sector, and I know that you did break it down into some different groups. It's not looking good at this point in terms of travel and that sort of thing. So I'm assuming that's going to be sort of a longer recovery. Do you have any more information, or did you get specific when you did the surveys with the different businesses?
Well, yes, the summer was actually not bad in some part of the country because Canadians have been traveling inside Canada. So the summer was actually okay in the tourist industry in different parts of the country. But because of the restriction, for example, hotels and restaurants couldn't accept everybody, and they have to low down their capacity. So this is not great. And now that the summer is over, it's going to be a bit more difficult. So unfortunately, we don't believe that the tourism sector is going to go back to normal before we have a vaccine. It will take a vaccine before our border is fully open and people start to travel. So I'm not an expert in vaccine. A lot of experts are talking about mid-2021 when we will have access to a vaccine. So our forecast is by 2022, the tourist industry should be back to the pre-crisis level, but it's going to take another 12 to 18 months.
Pierre, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Oh, wonderful. Let's start off with a big thank you. My name's Riley Burton, but thank you very much for being available and hosting the session today. I continue, managing the pandemic is becoming exhausting for me, so I'm more interested in opportunity and specifically given our geographical location. Does anything stand out? I mean, our manufacturing here is doing okay. It'd be nice if things turn a little bit more, and tourism is struggling, obviously, but given our northern geographical location, do you see any specific opportunities for us?
Well, I think, I don't know if the lumber industry is present in your region,
Certainly
but
is.
the lumber has been performing quite well. The housing market in North America has been surprisingly resilient. The housing starts in Canada has been very strong, so the demand for lumber has been very strong. Prices are really up. So lumber is actually an industry that is doing very well right now, both for Canada and for export. Another sector more in the long run, I would say, one of the sector that is going to be the future is technology. I know we talk a lot about technology, but it's so true. In the last decade, the technology sector has increased by 5% every year over the last 10 years. That's by far the sector who has been the biggest success. And we believe this momentum is going to accelerate as many companies are looking to adopt technology to improve their business, improve their production, and improve their presence online. So, there's no, you don't need to be downtown Toronto to build a business on technology business. You can do it anywhere in Canada. So this is actually a sector that will continue to do well for many years. And it's a sector that really represents the future of this country.
Thank you very much, Pierre.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I just want to invite you again, if you have any questions, to put them forward or to raise your hand, and I'll give you an opportunity to ask questions. Pierre, I just wanted to mention something today. Today on the news, Calgary is launching a pilot program with rapid testing in terms of for people traveling internationally, and I'm hoping that they, will focus initially on traveling domestically. And I'm hoping, because we've been talking about this, that will improve at least some of the travel and tourism, at least within our country, and help a lot of the industries that have a longer recovery time there.
Yeah, I think it's actually quite promising. It's a test that you can take directly at the airport, and you can get the result. I believe it's 15 minutes. So if it's possible to get this test, it's going to encourage people to travel more, because I was talking about international tourism, but there's also a lot of in Canada tourism, or even business traveling, that it's not happening now. So if people start to travel a bit more for business, it's going to help restaurants and hotels in our cities. So this is promising, but I think it's going to take some time before, these measures are great, but they are limited in terms of the impact they're going to have. So I think it's the best bet we have is to have a vaccine that will be accessible for every Canadian. Some experts believe that we might have a vaccine as early as January 2021 not for everybody, but for the medical staff. And actually, we might have a vaccine for everybody in mid-2021, and that would be really helping the situation.
One of the other questions that I had with regards to our recovery, obviously, when you're doing these studies, they're based on us, because you said that whether or not we have additional lockdowns will affect those numbers. What do you think in terms of staggered lockdowns? Because certain areas are not locked down, but they're like rolling back into phase 2, and it's staggered in certain hot spots. And do you have any foresight in terms of how that's going to affect everyone when certain areas are affected?
Well, I think the strategy, the new strategy, I would say, for the second wave is not to put the economy under lockdown, but to try to deal with specific cases, specific explosion of cases in the different regions and different sectors. So I think for the economy, it's a much better strategy because it means that you don't have to close the economy. You deal with cases that, when they happen. But to be able to do that, you have to limit the number of cases. If the number of cases become too important, I'll give you an example. For example, in Europe right now, France, United Kingdom, they have tens of thousands of new cases a day. So it's hard to sustain that and not locking down part of the economy. So the best thing is actually, if we all make an effort and we're able to reduce the number of cases, we will make it easier for government to manage this crisis. If we're not careful and the number of cases continue to increase significantly in Quebec and Ontario, well, government won't have a choice. They might have to lock down some part of the economy, and that will really delay the recovery. So we all have a part to play in this. Not only government, but every individual have to make their part, and then they respect the rules that are imposed in different provinces. And I think that's the best way to make sure that we will have a faster recovery. Because like I said, so far, we've been doing very well. If we look at how the economy came back after the lockdown, it's surprising. Actually, as an economist, most economists are surprised how quickly we came back. And like I showed, we are doing much better than the United States. And of course, we have our number of cases is much lower than the United States, so it's easier for us. But I mean, we have to keep that. That's we did very well for 3 months, so we have to keep going, because if we go back, exactly, if we go back to the spring, well, this is going to delay the recovery.
Excellent. And I don't see any other questions, but Erin does. Go ahead, Erin.
Sorry, hi. My question, Pierre, is I speak to many business owners, and one thing I'm hearing repeatedly as a concern is all the government subsidies and the government programs and how that's going to impact the level of debt and what that's going to look like as far as a financial recovery in the future.
Yeah, that's a very good question. There's no doubt that during the last 6 months, government, especially the federal government, has spent a lot of money to help Canadians, but also Canadian businesses. Like at the federal level, our deficit this year is going to be close to $400 billion. So that's huge. But there's two good news. The first one, interest rates are low, so it's easier to have that when the cost of money is very low. The second good news is we had a very good start. Like before this pandemic, our debt to GDP ratio in Canada was only 30%. We had the lowest debt ratio among developed economies. Like for example, in the United States is 100%. So at 30%, we were in a very good position. So if you have less debt, then you can afford to spend more, and that's basically what we did. Today, with everything we spend, our debt ratio went from 30 to 50. That's a huge jump. But we're still with Germany, the two lowest debt ratio among developed economies. So we are still in a good position. So having said that, it is a limit how much debt you can have. So I'm not too afraid that government is going to increase taxes or reduce spending, because it's really the wrong time to do that. Even let's say in the next 5 years, will be the wrong time to slow down the economy by increasing taxes. So I think what we're going to have to do is to live with high debt and high deficit for a longer period of time. Interest rates are low. I think the government are going to convince us that it's okay to have a higher deficit. So I don't think you will hear a lot of government or even political party to suggest to balance the budget. I think it's going to be like a long-term horizon, maybe a decade to balance our budget, because you don't want to slow down the economy by increasing taxes. So to summarize, I think, yes, we spend a lot of money to help Canadians, but we can afford it because we were in a very good position to start with.
And to expand on that, Pierre, do you see that as perhaps an advantage for Canadians, like for our country on a whole moving forward? Because post-pandemic, when we have this all under control on a global level, let's say, or in the process of controlling it through vaccinations, do you see that the fact that our debt to GDP level will still be lower than the grand majority of other countries will put us in an advantageous position in terms of our opportunities moving forward?
Definitely, because we have more resources, we can afford to spend money to help the economy, support Canadians. So I totally agree with that. However, we need a long-term strategy to reduce our debt in the long term. So to protect ourselves against another recession in 10 years or 15 years. It's exactly what businesses are doing now. They took more debt during the recession.
Right.
They didn't have a choice. They needed more debt. They needed more money for us to survive. But now, when you ask them what is your priorities, the number one priority is to improve their financial situation. So entrepreneurs understand that it's okay to take debt when you have to do it, when you have a slowdown, a recession, but at the same time, you have to be responsible in the long term and go back to a more comfortable situation when you can.
Excellent. I don't know if you had it. I don't see any other questions, but if you had any other oh, sorry, there. Go ahead, Colin.
Bonjour, Pierre.
Bonjour.
So I just wanted a little bit more clarity on, I guess it was projecting when we would go back to pre-COVID levels. It's been a few years since I've taken my economic course, and the pessimistic view was that fourth quarter 2023 was a possibility. So I was just wondering if you can expand on that, especially knowing or projecting that we'll have a vaccine by mid-2021. And if tourism and food services are able to rebound quickly because of that, why are we still projecting fourth quarter 2023?
Well, like I said, we have two scenarios, one optimistic. So if everything goes well, we can control the second wave, we have a vaccine, so we believe the economy will go back at the beginning of 2022. But the second scenario is a pessimistic scenario. So let's say the second wave become out of control in Canada, and our governments are forced to put some part of the economy under a lockdown. This will delay the recovery. Let's say we don't have the vaccine that we are, I think there's 35 different projects of a vaccine or 35 different teams. Let's say none of them is working. And in 2021, 22, we don't have a vaccine yet. Well, that's the pessimistic scenario. So to make sure that, because it's very hard, it's always hard to forecast. In this case, it's almost impossible because we are dependent of this virus, how this virus is going to evaluate. I remember a few months ago, everybody was saying, well, we're going to have a second wave, but we were not sure. Now we are into it. How big it's going to be the second wave, it's very hard to forecast. So that's why instead of having one forecast, we have two different scenarios. One, if everything goes well, and another one, if everything doesn't go well, it's going to be delayed. And I think it shows the importance of dealing with this virus. If we can control the virus, the economy is going to recover much faster.
Thank you. I was just wondering more, what were your variables in deciding the 2023 recovery?
Well, the 2023 is, the no vaccine mean that some sectors are not going to recuperate, because I believe that it's going to be difficult for tourism, for hotels, restaurants to perform without a vaccine because there's too many restrictions on them because of COVID-19.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Pierre. I was also thinking as you were talking to Colin about how, as an entrepreneur, you almost need to act like a government or like an economist in determining, having a planning strategy that incorporates the recovery with a controlled situation in terms of the virus, and maybe having a plan in the event that things are not as controlled as we anticipate that they'll be able to do that. I was also with Colin's question, I was wondering as an economist, how you see the future in terms of the younger generation and career prospects and what that means to them. And have you seen any figures in your analyses in terms of how they are impacted and whether or not they should be, focusing on becoming entrepreneurs, what their levels of opportunity are? Like, I mean, just in general, if you've gotten any analysis that might affect them.
Actually, the pre-crisis, February 2020 sounds very far right now, but it's not that far.
Seems like 2 years ago.
I know, it's incredible. But we should remember that before this, there was a shortage of labor in Canada, and a serious one.
And there still is.
There still is. It doesn't show right now, but it's going to come back very quickly. And the reason is because we have an aging population in Canada. You know that in 10 years, 25% of Canadians are going to be over 65. That's also the case for entrepreneurs. Actually, today, 60% of entrepreneurs are over 50. So my point is
60% of entrepreneurs are over 50.
Over 50.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna hold on to that.
So the next 5 years, a lot of people continue to retire. A lot of entrepreneurs are going to look to sell their business. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for the younger generation. They're going to have a job for life, not for life in the same job, but they're going to always have a job because there's going to be a shortage of labor. Same thing if they want to be an entrepreneur, there's going to be a lot of opportunities because according to, we just did a study after the pandemic, just actually a few weeks ago, and we asked entrepreneurs if they have an intention to retire in the next 3 years, and 26% of Canadian entrepreneurs said yes.
That's interesting. So they're looking for succession plans.
Exactly. And also we asked them if the pandemic have changed their plan. And I think it's 50% who said that it's actually accelerating their plan. Because, if you are, let's say you are 64, 65, and you have been, you had your business for a long time, you're wondering when you're going to retire. Now this huge pandemic happened, which is really difficult for business. Well, some of them will decide that, I'm done. I'm not going to rebuild because, times are difficult. I've been working for 40 years, so it's time now to retire. So I think in terms of opportunities for the future, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for young people.
That's interesting. And I actually was just speaking to someone the other day, and I actually likened it to a very to a wrestling terminology, saying that I think a lot of people are going to tap out in the next few years in terms of deciding to retire and or start planning for succession plans. So I'm glad to hear that that is the case and that there's lots of opportunity out there, and that even entrepreneurs in terms of expanding, because one of the things that you had mentioned is a lot of entrepreneurs are not only looking at continuing with their existing business, but to expand their business. And maybe that will be incorporating some of the other businesses where people are retiring.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, it's a great, actually, if you have the money and if you have the right business model, it's not a bad time to buy a business right now, because some businesses are struggling. Some businesses are for sale. So it's not a bad time to look for opportunities. Of course, if you have the cash flow to do so.
Excellent. And I don't have any other questions, but if you had any other points that you wanted to mention, otherwise we are going to say thank you for today.
Well, thank you. It was very interesting, and thank you for the great questions as well.
It was a sincere pleasure of mine personally to have you here. I thank you so much. I am sure that everyone else on the call has enjoyed all of your knowledge as well. Just so that everyone knows, please let everyone know that we have recorded today's session and we will make it available. So please, I know oftentimes we get inquiries after our session saying, did we record it? Can we watch it afterwards? And the answer is yes. Just go to tvchamber.ca. We will have it on our website. Thank you ever so much, Pierre. Very much appreciate you being here today. Thank you to BDC and the BDC team. You are amazing in all that you do to try to support small businesses, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.